Hello and welcome to Catalyze Music Academy. My name is Zaak Kerstetter. I'm an Ableton Certified Trainer. And for today's quick tip, I want to talk about one of my favorite MaxForLive devices, as also one of my just favorite LFOs, which is called Shaper. Now, this is a tool that has been around for quite a while, but they've recently, when Live 11 came out, they moved it directly into the audio effects page. So hopefully people are realizing this is here. If you're using an older version of Live, this is still going to be in your MaxForLive folder, but you can still find it and it still works pretty much exactly the same way. So the Shaper is going to be really, really handy, especially if you are familiar with the LFO MaxForLive device. The LFO is perfect for lots of different things. If you're not familiar with this, start using it. It's amazing. But if you want your basic LFO shapes, saw waves, square waves, sine waves, triangles, that kind of thing, LFO is great. But if you want to do something a little bit more interesting with your modulation, if you want to like spice it up a little bit more, Shaper is going to get you some really interesting results really fast. And you can do really similar things with third-party plugins that will have crazy LFOs in them. But this is built into Live and it's free if you have the suite version of Live. So we're going to start off with just a pretty basic operator patch here. I just have, it's just a sine wave and then a saw wave with a coarse frequency of 0.5 and then a sine wave. Sounds like that. Just nice kind of little bassy kind of sound. And we're going to turn on our low pass filter. This is going to filter out a lot of our high frequencies. And then we're going to add our modulation from our Shaper to make this move up and down. Now, the way you do this is you just hit the map button. While the map button is blinking, you can just click on it and it'll start moving up and down for me using this shape that is kind of depicted right here. And we can see kind of the output coming out right here. Now, keep in mind, you could use the LFO built into something like Operator, but once again, we're limited to just these basic shapes, and I want to do something more interesting with it. So we're not going to be using the built-in LFO here. So we can see this is our shape, and we have a bunch of built-in shapes, so I can just click on these. And I can change the rate here. And already I get some like pretty cool, interesting things out of it just by playing with the shape and the rate. And we can, of course, unsync the rate here or have it be synced to the grid. On top of that, we have a few extra controls here that are really handy. We can add a little bit of jitter, which adds a little bit of randomness. So it's still going to be the same kind of main shape going up and down. It's a little easier to see like this. It's still this kind of decaying saw wave. But if I turn this up, if you turn up a lot, it just sounds really kind of noisy and not super pleasant, but a little bit can get you a little bit of the randomness while still also kind of maintaining your shape. And then you can smooth it out by turning this up. You can see which adds a little bit more curve to it. We can adjust the depth up and down. You can see this gray line here indicating the middle of your LFO. So if I turn this down, it's going to be more towards that middle, so it's moving less up and down. It's kind of like a dry wet or an amount for your LFO. And then we have the offset. This will move it up or down. So I have this nice depiction here. You can see how all these controls work. So you can really customize your LFO and make it work exactly the way you want. On top of that, you can also use these controls over here to control the minimum and maximum amounts. So you can see right now my frequency is going all the way from the minimum amount to the full maximum. If I start adjusting these, I can get the kind of like right amount that I want. And you can even inverse them. If you turn them the other direction, it'll just go the opposite way, which is kind of cool. So that's the basics, nothing terribly exciting here. However, once I get in here, I can start clicking into this grid to start adding my own breakpoints here. So I can start creating my own custom shapes. So even as I'm listening to it, I can hear it kind of changing over time and start moving these around. Right now, everything is kind of snapping to this grid. If I want to change the grid, I can just click here and drag up or down to change this to up to 16 grid points. And again, I can just double click to create a new breakpoint, or you can also shift click to delete a breakpoint. On top of that, if you hold down the Option key, or I believe Alt key if you're on a PC, and you click and drag up and down, you can also add curve. So you can make some really interesting curved LFOs here. Like that. On top of that, if you don't want this to snap to the grid, you can turn off the snap to grid and you can just move it wherever you want. So really easy to just kind of on the fly shift this and move it around until you get this like nice, interesting LFO movement that you're looking for. On top of that, you can map up to 8 different parameters to a single shaper at once. So if I click on this, I can see I have up to 8 parameters. They all have individual minimum and maximum amounts. So I could map this to, say, my operator D over here. Find the right amount here. And then play with the shape a little bit. And all of a sudden, I just get like a whole world of sound design, just with only 2 parameters mapped to 1 shaper. So a lot of fun can be had with this, a lot of just like experimenting and kind of happy accidents, a lot of kind of like tweaking it on the fly. If you know you want some kind of like cool, interesting, complicated modulation going on, but you're not sure exactly what you want it to look like or sound like, this can be really a fun tool because you can listen to it and you kind of use your ear to find exactly that sweet spot where it sounds really cool for your bass line or for whatever kind of modulation you are using in there. So that's it. If you haven't been using Shaper, try it out. Let me know how it goes in the comments below. It's a really fun, really easy tool that I think can make a big difference in a lot of different kinds of sound design because it opens up a lot of interesting opportunities. So if you enjoyed watching that video, please feel free to subscribe to the channel. I release videos every Monday and Thursday about different topics related to Ableton Live. I'm also streaming on Tuesdays and Fridays. So check out the channel information for more info about all that stuff. So again, thanks for watching, and hopefully I will see you again soon.